Jimmy Haslam didn't just make a suggestion, he made a demand. When ownership crosses a line from influence to outright threats, it signals more than just organizational dysfunction. It's a collapse of structure. Stefanski's resistance to starting Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a coaching decision. It became a line in the sand. The Browns' front office, already strained by questionable dynamics, cracked further under Haslam's direct push to insert Sanders into the starting lineup. What followed was a debut that turned every internal doubt into a public statement.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Despite a fifth-round draft tag and months of being sidelined, Shedeur Sanders showed exactly why he was worth the risk. His poise, arm talent, and ability to lead in a high-pressure environment silenced every critic and cast a harsh light on the delays he faced. This wasn't a fluke. It was a breakout. In a team fractured by politics, Sanders emerged as the unifier Cleveland didn't know it needed. You ever feel like the Cleveland Browns can't go 5 minutes without stepping on a rake? Well, buckle up, because behind closed doors, this franchise just hit a new level of chaos. And this time, it's not the quarterback under fire. It's the owner. According to newly confirmed insider reports, Jimmy Haslam didn't just suggest Shedeur Sanders should start for the Browns. He demanded it, threatened Kevin Stefanski to make it happen, and in a power play that felt ripped straight out of a bad sports movie, the head coach's authority was shoved aside so ownership could get their way. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a little disagreement about depth charts. This was a full-blown internal struggle between the front office and the coaching staff, a total fracture in leadership. Haslam didn't whisper suggestions from a luxury suite. He made it unmistakably clear. Shedeur starts, or there will be consequences. So, how do we get here? Let's rewind. The Browns took Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, which immediately raised eyebrows across the league. Not because of his talent. No one questioned that. Mel Kiper himself called him the most talented quarterback in the draft. The fall wasn't about what he could do on the field. It was about noise off it. And because of that, the Browns got a player with first-round skill for 5th-round value. But apparently, Stefanski wasn't impressed, or maybe he just didn't want to deal with the spotlight. Either way, the Browns coaching staff decided to roll with Dillon Gabriel. Yes, Dillon Gabriel. The guy who looked shaky in practice, underwhelming in preseason, and frankly, out of his depth once the game started to matter. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders? He was benched, kept from taking first-team reps. Coaches made it crystal clear he was not in their immediate plans. Local reporters even began questioning the strategy, wondering why a quarterback with obvious upside was being iced out of opportunities. And now we know why the tension was boiling behind the scenes. Haslam wanted Sanders to start. Stefanski didn't, and the standoff escalated until the owner decided to override the coach. The insider report confirms it wasn't a friendly nudge. It was pressure. It was forceful. It was a clear threat to Stefanski's authority if he didn't fall in line. This is where it gets ugly, because it's not just about one player. It's about the Browns as an organization, about a system that should be built on trust between ownership, coaching, and player development, but instead is cracking under the weight of egos and dysfunction. The craziest part? Haslam may have been right. When Shedeur Sanders finally got a shot, he didn't just survive, he won. He became the first Browns rookie quarterback to win his starting debut since 1995. Think about how many quarterbacks have come and gone since then. It's been decades of revolving doors and busted potential. And this 5th-rounder, written off before he even got a chance, steps in and delivers. That's not luck. That's poise. That's talent. That's the stuff franchise quarterbacks are made of. He didn't get those reps. He didn't get that development. He didn't even get the public backing from his own coaching staff. And yet, when the spotlight hit him, Shedeur Sanders showed up. The win wasn't some fluke, either. Sanders looked like he belonged. His reads were sharp. His arm strength? Absolutely undeniable. And his composure? Unshakable. He didn't just take the field. He took control of the game. That kind of debut doesn't happen by accident. That's what happens when you've got a guy who's built for this. A player who's been underestimated, doubted, and still finds a way to deliver. Say what you want about the off-field noise. This kid has the kind of mental toughness you need under center in the NFL. And yet, before this breakout, he was being actively denied development, benched, overlooked, sabotaged, because let's call it what it is. Keeping quarterback with as much potential on the sidelines, refusing him first-team reps for months, and letting the media wonder what's going on. That's not just poor management. That's sabotage. Intentional or not, it delayed his growth, and it wasted valuable time. There were coaches in that building who favored Dylan Gabriel, who wanted to develop him instead. But the results didn't back up that vision. Gabriel didn't command the offense. The chemistry wasn't there. The energy was flat. You could feel the team stalling out. But ownership wasn't blind. Haslam wanted Sanders in the spotlight. He saw the potential. He saw the need for change. And when he didn't see it happening fast enough, he pulled the emergency lever. Now, does it set a dangerous precedent for an owner to override the coaching staff like that? Absolutely. This isn't fantasy football. This is the NFL. And coaches need autonomy if you want a functional locker room. But when the coaching staff refuses to develop a player with elite-level traits, the blame isn't all on ownership. This wasn't just a difference in opinion. This was a breakdown in communication. A team tearing itself apart from the inside. And all of that played out while a future franchise quarterback was stuck on the bench. The consequences? Long-term instability. When an owner makes personnel decisions against the wishes of the coach, trust disintegrates. Relationships fracture. And the players feel it. The locker room senses it. The message becomes, authority doesn't matter. Power wins. That's a slippery slope. And yet, the Sanders situation shows exactly why this team needs to figure itself out fast. Because they might actually have something special here. And they're going to blow it if they don't get out of their own way. Despite the drama, despite the roadblocks, despite being underdeveloped by his own staff, Shedeur Sanders delivered. That's not just a good sign. That's a lifeline for a franchise that's been spinning its wheels for years. There's a reason Mel Kiper called him the most talented QB in the draft. His film backs it up. His numbers back it up. And now, so does the scoreboard. He's not just talented, he's resilient. He's unflinching. And that's what makes him franchise caliber. The Browns haven't had a guy like that in decades. If they mess this up because of egos and infighting, that's on them, not him. The upcoming schedule gives Sanders a real shot to keep proving himself. And if the Browns actually rally around him, build a system that supports him, and leave the petty politics at the door, they might just have their answer at quarterback. But if they don't, if the dysfunction continues, then they'll be back to square one. Again, wasting talent, burning bridges, losing games. Because talent like Shedeur's doesn't grow on trees. And if the Browns can't get together enough to support him, then no amount of raw potential will matter. They've seen what he can do. The fans have seen it. The league has seen it. Now the question is, will the Browns organization finally stop tripping over itself long enough to let a star rise? That's the story now. Not just Shedeur's performance, but how the team reacts to it. Will they rally around him? Or will the politics keep getting in the way? Either way, the clock is ticking. If you're as fed up with the Browns' internal chaos as the rest of us, and still rooting for Shedeur to win despite it all, make sure to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. We're keeping an eye on every twist and turn in this saga. Because if Cleveland burns this bridge too, we'll be here to talk about it. Let's pick up right where we left off, because this situation with the Browns isn't just wild, it's textbook dysfunction. A masterclass in how to waste talent through infighting, mismanagement, and unchecked egos. Let's talk straight for a second. This wasn't some feel-good underdog story. Shedeur Sanders didn't come out of nowhere. He was known. His arm strength, pocket awareness, football IQ, it was all there. Scouts saw it. Analysts saw it. Anyone with eyes saw it. The only people who seemed confused were the ones paid by the Browns to recognize this kind of potential. And that's the tragedy of it. This wasn't a kid needing time to develop. This was a quarterback who should have been developed from day one, but instead got sidelined over politics. Let's break this down clearly. Shedeur was drafted in the 5th round. 5th? Why? Not because of his on-field performance. That tape was undeniable. But because of off-field concerns, vague, loosely defined whispers that followed him more than they should have. Some said his celebrity ties were a distraction. Others questioned how he'd handle NFL scrutiny. But none of those concerns had anything to do with how well he could throw a football or read a defense. And yet, instead of giving him a real shot to prove people wrong, the Browns benched him for Dylan Gabriel, whose college resume was solid but didn't exactly scream NFL ready. The coaching staff leaned into safe, predictable, comfortable, which would be fine if Gabriel had lit it up, but he didn't. He faltered, and fans could see it. The offense lacked identity. Drive stalled out. The spark just wasn't there. Meanwhile, Shedeur stood on the sideline, waiting, watching, learning plays he wasn't allowed to run, getting 0 first-team reps, while the team pretended like there wasn't a better option right in front of them. You want to talk about sabotage? That's it. We're not talking about a player struggling to adapt. We're talking about a coaching staff deliberately withholding reps from their most talented quarterback. That's not just bad strategy. It's destructive. And for what? To prove a point? To avoid ruffling feathers? This wasn't about merit. It was about control. Ownership saw what was happening and stepped in. And yeah, on paper, that's a dangerous move. When a billionaire starts dictating who starts at quarterback, it usually ends in disaster. But in this case, Haslam saw what fans were already screaming from the stands. The team was underperforming. The quarterback position was a mess. And the guy they refused to play just might be the one to turn it around. So he made the call. And no, he didn't do it quietly. This wasn't behind closed doors conversation. Insider reports confirm Haslam threatened Stefanski to make the change. This wasn't a debate. This was an ultimatum. Start Shedeur Sanders. Or else. Now, let's be very clear. This doesn't make Haslam a hero. An owner hijacking personnel decisions is a glaring red flag. But when the coach is actively refusing to use the best weapon in the building, it's hard to argue that something didn't need to happen. And look what happened next. Match, Shedeur finally got a shot, and he delivered in a way that made all the internal drama instantly look ridiculous. He marched onto the field with the confidence of a 10-year vet, hit tight windows, made pre-snap reads that confused the defense, kept his cool under pressure. He wasn't just managing the game, he was owning it. And suddenly, all those whispers about off-field distractions and locker room fit, they vanished. Because talent speaks louder than speculation. And on that field, Shedeur Sanders didn't just look like he belonged. He looked like the answer. Which brings us back to the Browns. What now? You've got a quarterback with franchise potential. One who's shown mental toughness, leadership, and elite mechanics. But you've also got a coaching staff that tried to bury him. A locker room stuck in the crossfire. And an ownership group that just overruled their own football people. This is a fragile moment. The Browns have been stuck in this purgatory for years, cycling through quarterbacks, coaches, GMs, trying to force a winning formula instead of building one. And now, when they finally stumble into what could be their guy, they're at risk of ruining it again with power plays and stubborn pride. It's a trust issue now. Stefanski's authority is publicly undermined. Players see it. Staffers feel it. The chain of command has been broken. And if it's not repaired fast, the long-term damage could be irreversible. But here's where this story flips. Because Shedeur Sanders, he's built for this. This entire fiasco only makes his performance more impressive. He walked into a fractured organization, absorbed months of shade and doubt, and still came out swinging. No excuses. No visible frustration. Just results. That kind of mental resilience is rare. And it's exactly what separates good quarterbacks from great ones. He wasn't coddled. He wasn't protected. He was thrown into the deep end, and he swam. Strong, confident, in control. And here's the thing the Browns need to hear loud and clear. Do not waste this. You finally got a quarterback who can win games, who commands attention, who has the raw tools to grow into a true face of the franchise leader. But if the internal dysfunction continues, if Stefanski's ego gets in the way, or if ownership keeps playing puppet master, It won't matter how good Shedeur is. This organization has a choice to make. They can keep playing tug-of-war over control, or they can get aligned. They can rally behind their young quarterback, give him the reps, the system, and the leadership he deserves, or they can keep making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And let's be honest, fans are tired of the drama. They've seen this team implode over and over again. High picks wasted, promising players derailed, headlines dominated by off-field nonsense instead of wins. But with Shedeur Sanders, there's finally a glimpse of hope. Not a gimmick, not hype, real hope, but it's fragile. Because for every touchdown pass he throws, there's still a question hanging in the air. Will this team support him or sabotage him again? And that's what makes this moment so important. Because Shedeur's breakout debut isn't just a win. It's a turning point, a chance for the Browns to finally get it right. But it starts with swallowing some pride. Stefanski has to let go of the politics. Haslam has to pull back the micromanaging. And the entire organization needs to rally around the one thing that actually gives them a shot, Shedeur Sanders. Because no matter how messy things are behind the scenes, one truth stands above all the noise. This kid can ball. So here we are, smack in the middle of what could either be the start of a new Browns dynasty or just another chapter in their never-ending disaster saga. And the sad part is, we've been here before. A glimmer of hope, a breakout game, a possible savior at quarterback, and then sabotage, egos, meltdowns, implosions. But this time feels different, because Shedeur Sanders didn't just step up, he stepped over the chaos, over the doubts, over the mess that ownership and coaching created, over the months of being iced out of first-team reps. And he did it with a calm that made everyone watching go, wait, this kid's the real deal. And yet, the story behind that debut still hangs heavy over the whole situation. We're not talking about a guy who quietly climbed the depth chart and earned his shot through a supported development arc, no. We're talking about a player who was essentially frozen out of the offense. A quarterback the coaching staff refused to back until the owner had to step in and demand his start like it was some kind of power struggle between billionaires and clipboard holders. That's not development. That's a standoff, a forced debut, and it should have never come to that. Let's talk about what should have happened. From the minute training camp opened, Shedeur should have been getting meaningful snaps. Not just cleanup duty in the fourth quarter of preseason games, but real development work. First team reps, scheme integration, reps with starting receivers. Instead, he was stuck watching from the sidelines while the coaching staff clung to Gabriel like he was Tom Brady 2.0. And look, it's one thing if Gabriel was lighting it up, but he wasn't. He was fine, serviceable, maybe, but fine doesn't cut it in a division where you're facing elite defensive fronts every other week. You need playmakers, commanders, guys who change games. Shedeur showed in one game that he's that guy. So why the delay? Why the cold shoulder? The answer, unfortunately, comes down to internal politics. Stefanski and his staff weren't on board. They didn't see Sanders as their guy. Whether that was due to concerns about his readiness, his ties to Dion, or just plain stubbornness, we'll probably never get the full story. But the result is clear. They wasted months of growth, months of development that could have built chemistry, sharpened timing, and accelerated Shedeur's NFL learning curve. Instead, they slow-played him, caged his potential, and it took ownership intervention to finally let him loose. Now look, we're not saying owners should micromanage football decisions. That's a nightmare scenario for most franchises. But in this bizarre case, Haslam pulling rank was the only thing that actually worked. His threat may have overstepped boundaries, but also forced the truth onto the field. And what we saw was a quarterback who could be a foundational piece for years to come. So now the Browns are at a crossroads. Option 1, keep letting this power struggle drag out. Let Stefanski keep playing games with snap counts and QB rotations. Let resentment simmer in the locker room as the coaching staff quietly undermines the quarterback the owner clearly wants front and center. Or option 2, cut the noise. Rally behind Shedeur. Give him the playbook, the reps, and the support he should have had from day one. Because if they don't, if they fumble this after everything, then this franchise doesn't just have a quarterback problem. It has a culture problem. Let's talk culture. Because what message does this send to the locker room? When a rookie QB balls out but still has to fight off both his own staff and the rumors flying around behind the scenes, what does that say about the organization's priorities? Development? Merit? Accountability? It says none of that matters. What matters is who you back, who you threaten, and who gets a pull rank. That kind of environment doesn't just affect quarterbacks. It seeps into every position group. The O-line starts wondering who they're protecting. The receivers don't know who'll be throwing to them week to week. And morale? Forget it. Players want leadership, consistency, vision, not power games and shifting loyalties. And in the middle of it all is Shedeur Sanders. Just try and play football. And here's the kicker. Despite all of it, the delayed reps, the media scrutiny, the fractured leadership, he still delivered. That's not normal. That's rare. Most rookies crumble under this kind of pressure. But Sanders didn't just handle it. He thrived. That's the kind of mental toughness you build around. Because talent will only take you so far. What separates long-term franchise quarterbacks from short-term flashes is what they do when everything around them is falling apart. And Sanders? He walked into the middle of a brown soap opera and brought order to the chaos. On the field, at least. Now the Browns front office needs to match that energy. That means Stefanski swallowing some pride. That means ownership stepping back after making their point. That means giving this kid a real runway to succeed. Not just a start, a system, consistent reps. Quarterback coaching that leans into his strengths, not someone else's prototype. Because here's the reality. The NFL doesn't wait. Sanders showed he's ready. And if Cleveland won't give him the opportunity to keep proving it, someone else eventually will. This league is always watching. And you better believe other teams saw that debut, saw that poise, saw that arm. The Browns have something here, something real, something that could finally pull them out of the quarterback graveyard they've been stuck in since the 90s. But only if they don't get in their own way again. So let's end it like this. Shedeur Sanders earned his start. He earned respect. He earned another shot, and another after that. And if the Browns have any sense left, they'll give it to him. You know what to do. If you're riding with Shedeur and want to see this franchise finally get it right, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more of the drama, breakdowns, and blunt truth the mainstream won't give you. Because with Shedeur at QB, the Browns might just have a future. Now let's see if they're smart enough to protect it.